All right. Well, welcome back to the world of marketing. I'm Tom Foster, CEO of Foster Consulting, and today I'm excited to have a conversation with my great friend that could fundamentally change how you think about running your law practice. My guest is Dave Fries, a practicing attorney who's not just talking about AI, he's using it every single day to generate what he calls transformational wealth in his own practice. Dave runs Business Black Ops, and he's become one of the most sought after experts on AI implementation for lawyers, speaking to county bar associations and legal groups across the country. But here's what makes Dave different. He doesn't just teach theory, he's in the trenches with us, actively practicing law while using AI tools to reclaim hundreds of hours and dramatically increase profitability. Dave and I have partnered to launch something I'm incredibly excited about, an AI mastermind group exclusively for attorneys. We're meeting virtually on the second Thursday of each month, and we're limiting membership to just 20 or 25 forward-thinking lawyers who are ready to gain what might be an unsurmountable competitive advantage. Dave, welcome to the world of marketing.
Thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you, buddy. And we'll provide the link to everybody so they can get involved in the AI Mastermind if they want to sign up. It's $500 a month, and we're going to put a link on the website so it's easy to do. We're working on that right now. But I got a bunch of questions for you to get us going.
You haven't revealed them to me.
I have not revealed them to you, and I'm excited to see what your responses are going to be. Okay, so Dave, you've said publicly, I know how to teach this so that people can and do actually use it. That's a bold statement.
Wow.
What are you seeing right now that made you feel so strongly that lawyers need to act on AI immediately, not next year or even next quarter?
Wow. So you're actually listening to the things I say. That's disturbing. It's a bold claim, but it's not unsupported. I mean, I'm not just bragging. I have a long history of being able to teach things in a way that helps people to do it. There's a difference between just learning it and being able to teach it. And likewise, there's a difference being able to teach it and teach it in a way that lets people apply it and use it, or at least raises the odds or the likelihood of that. Because, Tom, most lawyers don't do, for example, if we just take this back to the basics, they don't do basic marketing. If they do basic marketing, they do it sporadically and in a panic when client flow slows down. And if they do it, in any sort of meaningful and regular way, they don't do it very systematically. And then they don't do it in a way that optimizes it. They don't go back and look to see, hey, this thing that I did it work really well? Should I double or triple down on that? And if it didn't work, should I change it or should I do something different? It's the same with AI. I've got somebody coming to the door with terriers, so I'll apologize if you background.
I can't hear.
But, well, that's good. But it's the same with AI. Most law firms aren't using it. Most law firms are in denial about it. Most law firms think of using it only for like a couple of very narrow purposes. Yeah. Most law firms are afraid of it. Of the few that are using it, other than great big firms that are investing massively in it and building out a whole system and environment for the use of AI across systems. Other than them, most small firms that are using it for like one or two purposes, and typically to do content, and even then not very well. Now, DSS and Foster Consulting provide content creation for lawyers in a systemic way. And so you could choose to go that route. But that's not the only thing we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about identifying what are the essential business functions within each of the lawyer's practices. And this is what we do in the mastermind too. And then we say, okay, so there's an essential function of marketing. There's an essential function of finance. There's an essential function of hiring and onboarding. There's an essential function of pricing and figuring out what bundles of services we might offer. There's an essential business function of retaining clients or triggering them to make referral to you. And AI can perform or can assist in almost every one of those and make you better at
Right.
every one of those. But one of the things that we're also doing in the mastermind is we're going up a level. We're not just doing like, what are these little tactical things they could do? We're talking about how we could use AI to strategize. So the tactical things are, what are we going to do? And we want to know which are the ones that are best to do next. So we move up a level to try to think about that. And that's the thinking about doing, and that's strategy. And AI can be used very, very effectively in strategy. And if we go up a level, there's the thinking about thinking. How do we think about strategy? How do we think about how we react? These are things like, how do we become more resilient? How do we become more creative? How do we become more creative on demand? And AI has a role there. So AI has a role up and down this pyramid or this framework we've created of just achieving better results in business and in life. And AI has a role that it can play and is often very good at it if you carefully figure out how to use it across all of these business functions.
Yep. The meta, the strategic, and the tactical is what we go through in the mastermind group. And when we say tactical, that means like we'll actually teach you how to write a prompt and how to do it. So,
Mm-hmm.
but Dave, you're right, 100%. You know, you got to go up before you go down. You got
And
to
as
go
far
up
as
to the top about thinking, how to do it strategically before you actually just run to AI and start writing a nasty prompt that's going to give you crap.
Yeah, and that's what you were asking me is like you boldly claim that you could teach it in a way that actually you'll do more likely to do it and more likely to be successful. And so, for example, if you want to use AI, let's say to create a system of onboarding employees or professionals at any level of your practice, you could do that. But is that the highest and best use of your time at the moment? So we go up to the highest level of thinking about it, and we get AI to help us to think about those decisions. And we have a system so that you're way more likely to do it and you're way more likely to get the result you want. But if you don't, we're giving you a system on how to adapt to it too. And that's another thing that kills motivation. People don't do stuff because they don't see the benefit that's going to come from it. We will show them these massive benefits that can result from real world examples. So then they're more motivated. If they try something, it's a hypothesis and it doesn't work. A lot of people get discouraged. Well, we're teaching you, hey, be more resilient, be more creative. Those are really important skills in a chaotic, rapidly changing world. So that if you do try something, it doesn't work, you go like, okay, I got some data from that. I learned something from that. I also am going to focus on this thing because if I can crack the code on it, it's going to be the thing that makes the biggest difference. And so that keeps you motivated and keeps you doing it. So each and every one of these mastermind sessions that we do, Tom, is thought out in that way. How do we teach the skill so that people can understand it? How do we get to a point where they're so comfortable understanding it, they see how it fits into, and they build an action plan around it? And then how do they get a feedback loop going so that they optimize it?
That's very good. And you said real world example. So in your own practice, what's the single AI application that had the biggest impact on your bottom line? Can you walk us through a specific example of how you're using it day to day?
Sure, and this will probably surprise people, but when we go up that pyramid, here's tactical. These are the things that we do, and that's where most people are thinking about using AI. How can I write a piece of content? How can I write an ad to hire an employee? How can I figure out what to do with my pricing here at the end of the year? That's all tactical sort of stuff. Maybe shouldn't be. We should be maybe looking at it through the strategic lens, but I'm going to go all the way back up. So tactical is doing, strategy is thinking about doing, and then up above that at the meta level is how we think about thinking. And this is where I would say that I get the most benefit from AI because it makes the other things better. So early on, I mean in 2020, 2021, I started and it's gotten just better and better and better at this. I started asking it questions about thinking. So I would say, what are the qualities that great leaders across a whole range of activities, like great lawyers and great doctors and great communicators and great ministers and great salespeople, what are the characteristics that seem common to
Wow. Yeah.
success in how people define it for themselves? That
Right.
might be,
Wow.
it
That's
might not
good.
be. And it was pretty good at that. And then I would say, okay, How do I, so resilience is one of them, by the way. People across all endeavors that are resilient are more likely to be super successful as they define it for themselves. And they're more likely to set bigger, bolder, more powerful goals because they have resiliency. So if they fail momentarily at something, they have a bigger, longer range picture. So I started basically using it as a partner and building kind of a back and forth with it on what are these qualities, how would you develop them, what are some real world exercises. And then I started just getting better at prompting. You saw me prompting in 2020 in a way that people are just starting to get now, like common users, which is we would prompt by saying, here's who I am, here's who the firm is and what it does, here's the avatar that we serve in the following ways. So that was the background, and you had to, back in those days, give all of that to AI over and over and over again. That's becoming a little less important if you build a body of knowledge within the AI that it can refer to. But it's still a good practice to get into. What AI was making us do in those days was thoughtfully consider the problem in front of us so that we would build out a thoughtful prompt. Here's who I am, here's the firm, here's who we serve, here's what our pricing looks like. And then and only then would we ask it the question to help us to create a piece of content that would get that avatar to do this, to help us to figure out taking pricing from X to Y and how we would give more value. So as I got better at that, and as AI got better, I started to prompt it to say, acting as a team of highly compensated, proven successful consultants from Boston Consulting Group or McKinsey or whoever that's experienced in helping law firms to solve this kind of problem. Give me the pros and give me the cons. Tell me of the things in each that you think are the most important for me to understand. The prompts would become more sophisticated, so they would take a little while to write. And then we made a breakthrough probably in 2020 or 2021 where we would say, okay, now that you know all that, and before you answer the question, what are the additional questions you have for me that you need to do in order to do? Now, a lot of people listening will go, oh, I do that all the time. And probably for the last year or two, people that were very good at this and becoming better at it, or were doing that. But you and I, with the group that we're working on, we're way ahead of that curve. So I remember talking to a Python programmer at a conference I was to early on in the game. And so these are the guys that are writing this code. And they said to me, how do you get it to do that? Because they knew how they were building the thing, but they didn't really know how to get it to do some of the things in an optimal way. And now, of course, they're way better at that. So I started building prompts and building out structures and building out systems where various experts with different fields. So I would have the AI play a role of expertise. So now I've got high-level psychologists proven to get people in professions to achieve higher levels of performance, advising me. So I've got it from the psychological angle on resilience. I've got, business experts talking to me about building systems. And so I could have multiple perspectives, analyze a problem, and then I would think through it like the human that I am, but I would also maybe go back and sometimes say, now that you see this perspective, and this perspective, tell me what you think about that, synthesize those things. But I would always ask it to tell me why it was doing that and what it thought was important. So you're getting it to think in a different way, and you're getting it to reveal to you the biases that were going on in its background thinking. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, which is, how do you use AI that made a really major change in how you practice? And I was doing it up at the meta level. There are hundreds of groups and sources where you could get information on the tactics of using AI. And the last, if each of our mastermind sessions is an hour to hour and 10 or 15 minutes, the last half hour is dedicated to like putting it in a form that people can actually go and use. But the first 10 to 15 minutes is over and over again, not repetitively, but delving into what are the mindset level ways that we should be thinking about using it. Because when you think better about your thinking and you have it more refined, and you think more about strategy and you have clarity on your purpose, your value, your mission, your avatar, the value you bring, the problems you solve for your clients, when you have clarity about that, then the things to do, there's always more things to do, Tom, than any lawyer can do. Every lawyer listening will feel this way. It's overwhelming. So the trick is to figure out which are the ones that are going to move the needle. And by having clarity, you can search for alignment. And by getting alignment, you eliminate friction, you raise the likelihood of an individual tactic succeeding. And so I would say that process of thinking from the top down and using AI in that way is the second most important thing that's helped me to transform my practice. It's not like I was a slacker before I got AI. It speeds up high level thinking at each of those.
Yeah, of course. Okay. The marketing materials for our mastermind talk about law practices splitting into two distinct groups, those using AI and those getting left behind. From what you're seeing in the legal community, is this really happening? What does that gap look like in practical terms?
Yeah, it is happening. There's a lot of lawyers in denial, as there are in people across all different kinds of businesses and service businesses. And some law firms are using AI in, like a product, like Clio. Clio has integrated AI into it, and some people use it in that context. And some people use like the Westlaw product or the LexisNexis product, which is that's helpful and good for practices that can afford that and who think at that level. I like to think that it's going to produce, just like this mastermind. We would not be selling this to people if we didn't think that they could get more than $500 a month of value. The way I look at that is if a lawyer takes one idea from this mastermind and implements it more quickly or uses AI in a way that accelerates their performance or improves their performance in any important aspect of their practice, they should be able to make thousands of dollars a month more on a compounding basis. It's not like you set it, forget it. It's not like you learn the technique and you never have to follow up again, because this is a changing world. But the other thing is that we're bringing together people that are using AI in more and more important ways. And they're out there searching in this complicated universe and finding tools that they could bring to us. Just at the last meeting, somebody said, "Oh, I came across a purpose-built tool to do this thing you're talking about." And those other lawyers that were on that call might never have known about it, or might not have known about it for months or a year later. So that the lawyers that are in the vanguard on this are using it, the ones that are in the vanguard are using it in many, many different ways. But the ones that are just toying around with it or using it in a narrow context, they're still going to be better off than the ones that aren't. And another important thing that we're discussing is there's a massive shift on. Google is now, the vast majority of searches are ending in no click, meaning the way that you've done SEO, where people search for the answer to a question and come to your website to get that answer, that's a dinosaur way of thinking. And answer engine optimization, which is when somebody asks, who's the best lawyer that does this thing in your practice area in my town, that's just going to tell them the answer. And so you have to build websites indexed in a different way, using a schema in a new way, like using some things that lawyers just aren't smart at doing. Now, for the lawyers that are DSS users and members of this, they're getting some advantages already. But even those lawyers that are getting the advantages of DSS building these changes in, they still need to think about it in a new way. So, because it can impact every area of your practice in fundamental ways, not just in little tiny ways, those that are completely ignoring it are just going to get snowballed over more and more. It's not going to be an 80-20 world. It's going to be a 95-5 world.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so you've talked about slashing 70% of document preparation time. That's massive. But I know lawyers are concerned about accuracy and malpractice issues, as you are.
Sure.
How are you handling AI-generated legal documents in terms of review, verification, and risk management?
It's a great question. And again, we're not new to this. We've been using a form of AI a document assembly algorithm that's super sophisticated, like wealth counsel people would know, or interactive legal people would know in my field. These are very sophisticated programs that take the lawyer or the paralegal through a series of questions. So in my practice, the lawyers meet with the clients, but we've designed this process that we take them through. We ask them these questions, so we're then able to put those answers into a very sophisticated program, not inexpensive, by the way, that then builds the basic plan, estate plan in our case. But you can do this with, there's programs to do this with discovery, and in litigation, there's programs to do this with trial preparation. So there are tools to do all of these things much more efficiently and effectively. Now, to your point, AI, just general AI, the large language models, they can still hallucinate. They hallucinate more depending on the prompt, or less depending on the prompt, but they can still be inaccurate. Models built for lawyers and trained just on a very narrower set of data, not the whole world of lunatic thinking that's in Wikipedia, for example, or Reddit, those are more accurate, or these programs like I'm talking about that are built as an algorithm that in a very sophisticated way, put stuff together. It's not that we just rely on that. So lawyer is with client, produces electronic or written checklists that paralegal uses with the software to produce very sophisticated documents. So that document might be 87, 90, 92% of the way done. And what happens is we build templates within that document that say, when the client gives us this kind of answer, we want this kind of response we want this type of clause built into the will. And it's doing that without hallucination. It's doing that 100% of the time. So we put an enormous amount of time into building the templates so that depending on what the answers the client give us, we get a very, very, very close to done type of document. Now, do we still put in another 5-10% of the time on that in the lawyer reading it and focusing on certain areas that we know need to be highly customized? Yes. But is it a gigantic and substantial savings? Yes. Does it systematize things in a way so that the wrong name is not in the document, which I'm sure trusted estates lawyers have been embarrassed by? I just had a client tell me that they got a draft back from their previous lawyer that mentioned another person's family's name in there. So there's all kinds of benefits. And I've seen that in litigation practice too, in discovery, addressed to the wrong person or mentioning the wrong accident in the discovery. So, sure. So there are so many advantages to using these types of AI across so many different essential business functions, that it can be massively time saving. I will say this, it's massively time consuming, like anything else you do well, to come up to speed on it, to think strategically about it, to get it to know how you practice, to learn how to prompt, or to teach your team how to prompt in a way that gets optimal results, to figure out which program to use. Yes, is that going to take some time? But that's an investment that pays dividends for a long, long time in massive ways.
Very good. Now, you kind of already answered this earlier, but I'm going to ask it again so you can answer it in a different way. So one thing that surprised me in our planning was your focus on using AI for mental toughness and resilience, the mindset work, the meta work. This isn't what most people think about when they hear AI for lawyers. Can you explain what you mean and why you're starting the mastermind with this in month 1, which we recorded, and everybody can have access to that if they sign up?
Yeah. It's an outstanding question. And so we can go a little bit specifically in how I use it. So I've identified, so first I used AI to help me identify, these traits and these abilities that were pretty uniform to high-level performers. There were not an enormous number of surprises there for me because I've spent a lot of time in my life thinking about that and tracking people down with expertise and eliciting from them how they do things and modeling it and seeing if I can make those things work for me too. And one of the things I found, by the way, is that humans, when you ask them how they do something when they're experts, are generally speaking incapable of giving you an honest answer for that, because expertise implies that they've learned to bunch things together, little things that if you and I as novices were trying to do something, we'd have to think, oh, I do A, then I do B, then I do C. Oops, no, I should have done D there, then C, then E, F. And we have to think about 50 or 100 steps. Experts, that's like 2 steps. And they clump all these things together in big thought groups. So that when you ask them, how do you do that? They go like, well, I think about this and then I do that and I get this amazing thing. But really there are a number of steps in there. AI was helpful with that too. I taught it what I knew about thinking about and finding out from experts the multiple levels that they use. So I sent AI out into the world to find evidence of where people were more methodically documenting their thinking and where it would help me to document my thinking. So I identified like resiliency, really important. Creativity, really important. Creativity on demand, really important. Flexibility, very important. Self-awareness and situational awareness, very important to success. And for any lawyer listening that goes, oh, of course, those are very general concepts. We don't really work on those. I try not to let a day go by when I'm not working on those, but most people don't work on those. They tell themselves they are, they tell themselves they're good at it already, but they're not. They're not optimized. They may be good, but they're not the best that they could be at those things. And so AI was really, really good at helping me to confirm that these were things that were important. I'll give you an example why. Self-awareness. If we're unaware that there's certain kinds of things that we don't like, we hate, and we build them into a system where we have to do them, that system will fail because we're not going to do them. That's from a fundamental lack of self-awareness. If we're self-aware, hey, I hate this thing, but it's an essential step in this process, I've got to hire somebody who's good at it, right? So that's self-awareness, situational awareness, has to do with who are our clients? What is it that they want? What problems do we solve for them? Why do they pay us money? What would cause them to pay us more money? That's situational market awareness. Again, most lawyers think about this, if they do at all, they build an avatar out. They say, oh, I represent predominantly men and women age 30 to 90. That's not really that useful. And it's probably not even true. But like, so for example, if somebody's a PI attorney, maybe they represent motorcyclists. Maybe they represent truck car accident victims. But even within that, there are certain kinds of clients within those categories that they like working with more, they're more effective more, those clients come to them, are guided by them, are easier to work with, get back to them with their responses to discovery quickly. They don't constantly bother the lawyer's staff asking questions when they've already been told twice that there's going to be a 6-week period till we get an answer back. So there are all of these things that you go into. Who is the avatar? That's situational awareness. So we identified all of these, and then I would ask various AIs, okay, what is a practice that I could do initially to become better at this? And what are some daily practices that I can repeat or build into my daily prompt or my follow-up at the end of the day? So that as I became good at that, I would say, okay, what's a follow-up exercise to that? Like, now that I'm good at that thing you told me to do, and how do I measure my progress? That's another thing that AI is good at helping you to figure out mileposts. So not just what you should be doing, building creativity on demand, but how specific exercises, and then how you can measure that. Because most people think, oh, these things are not measurable. They are measurable. Sometimes the measurements are a bit subjective, but having AI to check you on that means you're not like just running amok, rationalizing everything to yourself.
Very good. Okay. We both know that lawyers are notorious for going to conferences, getting excited, and then nothing changes. How is this mastermind structured differently to ensure people actually implement what they learn?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we could always be better at that. One of the things I've learned from Business Black Ops, which is an organization you and I both work in, one of the things I learned there is that, I got to give enough ideas and information to all the different kinds of people that are there. Same with this mastermind group. Lawyers are applying this in lots of different ways in lots of different practice areas. So we've got to show them a number of things that they can do. But then At the end of Business Black Ops, after 3 days, we try to get everybody to have the one thing that they're going to do on the front of an index card, and maybe 2 or 3 things that they're going to follow up, along with making sure that all of that stuff is in their calendar with time blocked to do it. And it's the same here. There's sort of a funnel. Here's a bunch of things that, when we get to the tactical thing, here's a bunch of things that you could do. Now, which of those, we want you to think about it, which of those is most aligned with what you want, most likely to get you the right kind of client, or most likely to trigger a referral, or whatever it is you're doing. And then get people to block the time, either for them to do it or their staff who is going to be doing this. And that's another important point, is if you've got somebody that's doing this, you shouldn't be oblivious to this. You want to be on this mastermind call too, but you might want the implementer of this to be there and to hear it, so that you're not then having to go and sell them on the idea after each month. They're there, and you could have a mini mastermind afterwards to make sure what you're thinking is A, you're both thinking about it the same way, because miscommunication occurs there all the time. What is it that we're really trying to do? And B, the timetable and the way that we're going to measure the results of this are in place, and everybody agrees upon it.
Very good. Are there certain practice areas where AI is having a bigger immediate impact? If someone's listening and thinking, this sounds great, but I'm a family law attorney, criminal defense attorney, estate planning attorney, does this really apply to me? What would you tell them?
Yeah. So I'm sure that there are some practice areas, I don't have any data on this, where they're ahead of other practice areas, right? Or the top performers are ahead of some other practice areas. So for example, I think people who were great marketers before AI are probably early to the game of using AI, meaning that they probably started using it to produce content, and so they could see its utility in doing things. But a lot of times they get stuck there, right? They're just using it to produce content, or using it to produce a series of ideas for content, or using it to produce a script for a social media video they're doing. But people who, now social media is indexed by Google. So now social media is becoming even more important than it was. You used to tell people, hey, you need to have a presence on social media. And I, because of the nature of my practice with older people, did not make that a priority. I think I was right about that at the time for me. But now that social media is being indexed and is acting a lot more like a search engine, it may be more important than ever for practices like mine, or family law practices, business to consumer type of practices, have that social media presence. So people that were good at marketing and have this smart AI overlay of information and trajectories and strategies, they're going to get ahead. But people that are just refusing to do it, eventually AI will become even easier and easier to use. So some of the lead that you get may erode. But you helped me back in the day. I think you remember this. I came down one day and we shot like 83 videos in a day. But I had meticulously, this is before AI, this is like 15, 20 years ago, thought about what are the things that I really bring to the table? What are the things that people are curious about? My right kind of clients. And here we are 20 years later, where some of that evergreen video is still getting enormous traffic because it is evergreen, it's trusted. Google has been sending people to it for years. We're going back and trying to organize it, make sure that it's presented in an optimal way for the answer engines, which is when AI gives an answer to a consumer question rather than Google. So some practice areas are probably ahead of others, but what I would say is if you haven't really perfected your marketing yet, how your marketing is done and how you produce is going to change radically. So you want to get into AI sooner. If you've already perfected your marketing, this mastermind is going to help you to use AI across a bunch of other domains within your business. That's going to make you more and more bulletproof. Again, it's not like you learn AI once and you just forget about it. Anybody that thinks you've cracked the code, even in your marketing and your pricing, whatever it might be, the world is a rapidly changing place. What your existing clients want from you, and people who are in the same circumstances, if you're a PI lawyer, for example, or a divorce lawyer, there are changes in how they articulate what they want,
Right.
they're willing to pay. And you've got to be able to figure out, how do I present the value to them in a way that makes sense to them and that makes them want to pay, good margins and feel like they got value. So AI helps with all that. You ignore it at your own peril.
So what's the most common objection or concern you hear from lawyers about AI, and how do you respond to that?
Sure. One of the most common ones I hear is it's unreliable, it hallucinates, and so I can't use it. Well, your associates are unreliable and hallucinate a lot of times too. Your associate lawyers. So, you have to build AI and use AI in ways that limit hallucination, and you have to review the work product.
To your original point about thinking about thinking, getting into the meta part of it.
Exactly. So hallucination is one of the big objections. Price is another. So the very best forms of AI for law firms that eliminate the ethics issues of like using ChatGPT and putting clients' names in and things like that, which is still for the time being a no-no unless you use it in certain very specific ways. There are ways to run these programs locally or to limit what is shared in improving the model, but you still have to be very careful about that. So the cost of the most sophisticated lawyer tools is very high, just like everything else that's really helpful and useful to you, meaning that you have to be able to figure out, how do I make more by using this than I would without it? And that equation is not that hard, because if you go without it, the big firms are going to perfect the uses of these tools. And then even as these more expensive tools become available to law firms, only the law firms that have been thoughtfully using AI are going to be able to optimize them. If you've just been ignoring it, it's all going to seem like Greek to you, and you're going to be behind for years. And in the meantime, people in your market that are good at this are going to be getting more and more and more of the referrals. So, for example, Google is now going into Facebook groups and indexing Facebook groups where people are talking about lawyers, and they're giving real recommendations in real language. And if you don't understand what's going on there, you're going to be, it's going to be to your detriment.
Okay. Last question.
Oh my.
Looking ahead 12 to 18 months, what does the practice of a lawyer who's fully embraced AI look like compared to one who hasn't? Paint us a picture of both scenarios.
That's a great question. So if you have fully embraced it, what you're going to see is more frequent strategic thinking sessions. So if you're, traditionally, lawyers didn't take a break to do strategic thinking. Of the firms that did, who outperformed those that didn't, they would do it maybe once a year. They do a SWOT analysis if they were smart in October, November, so that they had that data going into the new year and could adjust accordingly. Because AI is changing so rapidly and the power it gives you is multiplying so quickly, it's not, again, without its faults. I think you'll see really smart firms have strategy sessions with their teams on a more regular basis where they say, how are you using it? They will also want their teams not to use external AI for all kinds of ethical reasons, but they're going to want them to use their firm accounts for AI, both for ethical reasons and so that they can see the workflow, because your employees and your team members are going to figure out new and novel and interesting ways to use AI, and then you'll have that as proprietary knowledge within your firm. You'll see people using AI much more aggressively to document these processes and these systems and how to measure. And you'll see, I think, some of the security issues be resolved so that you could use AI with a greater degree of safety to analyze your own finances and make recommendations about cash flow, and to analyze marketing at a very high level rather than just, I use it to create this piece of content. Rather, it's going to be, I use it to do all of these things with these types of calls to action that appeal to these exact avatars at various points on the journey. So for example, if we write a piece of content or send an email or send a direct mail letter or a printed newsletter, in my firm, we spend, $50,000 a year or more on a printed newsletter that goes out to people, but it's super effective because it fills up the attorney's calendars each time it goes out with appointments. You're going to see people building systems out where they are self-improving systems. And here's what I mean by that. The AI is periodically going to be tasked with looking at the performance of the system itself and identifying where the system isn't working. So you're going to be improving how you get from point A to point B. Like, here's where we are, and you're going to be honest with yourself about where your firm is, because if you're not honest with yourself about where your firm is, you're going to be building systems to start from the wrong place. And then you're going to say, here's where we want to be, and here are the steps we have to take in this order, and here's what we have to measure. And then you're going to want to know, how are we doing as we go? And AI will facilitate us to be able to do that. For example, you could document systems now in the tiniest fraction of a time with more accuracy than you ever could before, because you either have employees meticulously plot them out, and a lot of times they miss steps, or you had to hire somebody to come in to document what was going on. Both ways were expensive. AI can help you to build systems, jobs descriptions, all of these things, and then remind you to go back and modify them and to look at how they're working and to see if something has changed. So firms that are really good at using AI will be more strategically focused and will have a better way of strategically getting data in a feedback loop and responding to it, not just in their systems, but in their advertising, their marketing, their intake, everything they do. Firms that are not doing that, it's going to be like when we went from the typewriter to word processing. Firms, and I lived through that. When I was in law school, every firm had typists typing. When I came out of law school, the biggest firms that I applied to and worked with, they had been using word processing for 3 or 4 years already, and we're off to the races. And firms trying to deal with discovery and respond to us when we had these amazing tools. Now look, eventually everybody got word processing. Some people still use word processing in the most shockingly primitive ways. And so firms that are not using AI are going to be typing on the IBM Selectric for 5 years while people are building out all these systems and doing things that makes a lot of these law firms invisible to the general public.
Okay, I do have a bonus closing question for us, buddy, because we're about out of time.
That's terrifying. Go ahead.
For someone listening right now who's intrigued but maybe on the fence about joining the mastermind, what would you say is the cost of waiting versus the cost of getting started today?
Yeah, if I had to quantify this, to me, I've always been this guy. If I go to a conference and I spend $1,000 on the conference and $2,000 to get there and stay at a hotel, I'm up $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 and I'm not in the office working. So maybe that's a $10,000 investment by me. All I do is I say, what is the idea, which if I get this here and implement it, is going to return $10,000 to me in the shortest period of time. And so that's what the reticular activating system is looking for. It's looking for, what is it that I could get out of this? I think that's a pretty easy calculus in this case, meaning what can you do with the knowledge and information you're getting? And you could go, you don't have to wait. I think we're better at it than when we recorded the first one, but you don't have to wait to see if this makes sense to you. You could go watch the first one for free, I think. And and just say to yourself, what is an idea I could get out of this that would make me more than $500? Not hard. It's like when I explain to people, that if they don't do their stuff.
Totally, it's such a deal.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot of money, right? If you're a small practice, that's not an insignificant sum. But, if you commit to 6 months, it's a few $1,000. And if you can't make look, we're not allowed to make
an investment.
We're not allowed to make claims on revenue here. But if you can't make a 10x on that 6-month investment in this, I would say you got to give this in your head. You got to say, I got to give this 6 months. Because a lot of this stuff takes a while not just to do, but then to see the results of the doing in a meaningful way, over time.
Very good.
Sure.
Yeah.
So.
All right, buddy. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me. I love doing this with you. I love it, and I think the lawyers, we've had some really good feedback from the lawyers that
the ones that have joined already, good stuff coming out, and everybody contributes, and that's what's great, is that everybody's using it in a different way. And just us, it's just so validating to have people learn how to use it, and then they go and do it, and then they come back and say, wow, this is my experience. And that's, even myself, like, I use AI every day for almost everything, and it's because I learned from you, right? I learned how to do it from you. You taught me how to do it from the top down.
Well, that's the thing, is I try to get people to do it. I just try to get people to do it in different areas of their life.
Right.
See that it can work in a non-threatening environment, they're more likely to experiment it with.
That's exactly right. All right, buddy. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Everyone, it's been Dave Freeze, the magnificent Dave Freeze, and just Tom Foster here on the World of Marketing. We appreciate you tuning in, and if you wanted to find out more about the AI Mastermind, just go to fosterwebmarketing.com, and you should see more information there. All right, everybody. Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Thanks.
Bye.